here's the thing, is that if you read the Tanakh, okay, we have Zechariah telling us that all the nations are going to go up and celebrate Sukkot, right? So the festivals are still celebrated in the end time when the Messiah is reigning, right? The festivals are kept, okay? You have Isaiah telling us that the Gentiles will be keeping kosher, and whoever doesn't is going to be destroyed, right? Okay, you have Isaiah telling us that the Gentiles are going to be keeping the covenant and the Sabbath. Okay, so now what I find interesting is that you have people, and this is where the mainstream Christian theology doesn't stack up for me. I just don't understand how we can do this. Now you're telling me that something has changed. God comes along later. Jesus comes along later. Paul comes along later and says, none of that is true. Now maybe that's too harsh. But I don't understand how those things could not be right. Like the kosher laws aren't for the Gentiles anymore. Well, it says in Leviticus that they're forever. Actually, what's the passage here? Give me just a second. Deuteronomy 14. Let's look at Deuteronomy 14 real quick. All right? Deuteronomy 14. Verses 3. You shall not eat any abomination. These are the animals you may eat. So Deuteronomy 14:3 tells us that you're not allowed to eat any abomination. So God doesn't change. You're not allowed to eat any abomination. Isaiah 66 tells us that the Gentiles are going to keep the kosher laws, right? And that they keep the covenant, right? Isaiah 56 tells us that the Gentiles keep the covenant. Now, talk about a hard sell. You are going to have to do, I mean, there's no situation where God tells us one thing and then people come along later and say, that's not right, and we accept the thing that comes along later. Everything that we accept after what is written here has to line up with it. So if Jesus comes along, if Paul comes along and says, the kosher laws are done away with, guess what? They're not who they say they are. So we have either one of two things happens here. Either we reject Paul and Yeshua, which you guys know I'm not going to say we're going to do, but that's the option. If they're saying that the kosher laws and the covenant is done away with, either they're not who they said they were, or we are misunderstanding them, and we have to figure out how to line up what they're saying with what came first. And so, to Brittany and anyone else who's going to say, well, the kosher laws would be a hard sell. No, what's going to be a hard sell for me is you're going to have to show me how God could say what he said was forever is not forever. You're going to have to show me how in the end time, we're all going to keep kosher again, but all of a sudden during this time, I mean, what are we dispensationalists now? During this dispensation, the law is put on the shelf. This is why dispensationalism believes that we relate to God in different ways in different times. Is because they say that the Jews are going to have to keep the Torah again because that's how they have to reconcile the prophecies. Now, granted, someone like Brittany, she says she was raised Baptist, so we might be talking about dispensationalism now. Now, I don't know. I don't want to assume anything about Brittany or anyone else for that matter. So, if we're talking about a dispensational understanding of the Word of God, that the people of God now, the church, we're in the church age, and the Torah is only for the law age, which happened before the church and is going to happen after the church is raptured. Okay, now we can talk about those things. That's a completely different theology, and it's something that we certainly could address because it's clearly not biblical. But the point is that Yeshua in Matthew 5:17 and in Luke 14, right, he tells us that the law is not done away with. So once again, I honestly and truly believe that the notion that Gentiles wouldn't keep the Sabbath, wouldn't keep the kosher laws, wouldn't keep the festivals, this is church doctrine being read back into text. It is not the other way around. It's not that the text is wrong. It's not that we have to re-understand our Bible, because we have to figure out what the translations say. No, what we have to do is we have to line up what has come later with the original word of God that came first. In other words, if the Torah came first, that's the ruler. Everything has to stand up to it. You can't say that it's wrong.
Yeah, it seems like, where Paul in Romans 11 says, be careful that you're not boasting against the branches. It feels like this is almost that type of thing where the people or streams of teachings within the church. I don't want to say the whole church. I'm not going to throw the whole, the whole church is not guilty of this, but it is, at least in American Christianity that I'm aware of, right? It's that there is this sense of, this what we call replacement theology, or, God has changed. The church is a new thing. It's an Acts 2 Pentecostal kind of, it's a new thing. that God is done with the old thing and he's doing a new thing now.
Thank you so much for watching this video. Tell us your thoughts on this subject by leaving a comment in the comment section. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, and enable those notifications. And we'll see you in the next video.